infinite wisdom and providential goodness, has appointed the offices of rulers and councils for the welfare of society and the just government of man. We beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of such important trust in the Commonwealth of Dominica. Let thy blessing descend upon us here in this Parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in thy presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge, all which we ask in the name and for the sake of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Good morning to all. The Honorable Prime Minister have requested the leave of the Speaker to address this House and address the citizens of Dominica. It is granted. Proceed, Honorable Prime Minister.
Fellow Dominicans, residents and friends, good morning. Cluster of COVID-19 cases. As you're aware, government has had in place several measures to reduce the likelihood of a COVID outbreak, including a number of protocols and increased patrol at our borders, restriction in the number of people attending events, mandatory use of masks, and up to last weekend, the cancellation of social gatherings, all geared at protecting our people. However, many of these measures are not being observed by some of our residents. These, unfortunately, are the same residents who are unvaccinated. The current cluster appears to be associated with an individual or individuals who entered Dominica illegally and took part in a biker's activity along with a jam at a location in Pottersville known as The Lot on Sunday, July 25, 2021. As you're aware, there was a public announcement from the Ministry of Health requesting people who attended this event at The Lot in Pottersville to get tested. Over 200 people presented themselves for testing at the Roseau Health Center yesterday, August 2nd, 2021. We thank all those who heeded the call for their cooperation. To date, there are 10 confirmed cases associated with this event, plus 2 imported cases, bringing the total number of active cases in Dominica to 12. Meanwhile, 14 of the individuals who received rapid antigen tests at the Roseau Health Center yesterday tested positive. We are currently awaiting the results of the PCR tests to confirm the status of these individuals. All confirmed cases and those whose rapid antigen tests were positive have been placed in isolation or quarantine in a government facility. Based on the observations so far, the current cluster of the COVID-19 cases is quite different from previous clusters, mainly because a number of the people who have tested positive and their contacts are presenting flu-like symptoms. This makes the virus much more contagious. Therefore, to reduce the likelihood of further infections, the Ministry of Health has recommended some measures which the Cabinet has accepted. The measures are as follows. 1. A curfew order will be in effect from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily from Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021, for the next 7 days in the first instance. 2. However, in the case of the weekend, the curfew will begin at 5 p.m. on Saturday, August 7th, 2021, and will continue throughout the day on Sunday, August 8th, 2021, and end on Monday, August 9, 2021 at 5 a.m. Curfew will then resume the night of Monday, August 9, 2021 at 6 p.m. All non-essential businesses are to remain closed. That's number 3. 4, essential workers, including people working at the ports, healthcare workers, banks and credit unions, hardware stores, telecoms and broadcasting, pharmacies, farmers, security services, utilities. The exhaustive list will be published later today. These measures will also include workers and people who are traveling in and out of the country, seeking medical care, shopping for necessities, banking, but by appointment only, caring for a family member, pet or livestock, involved in construction, farming, and manufacturing, all of whom will be allowed to continue their activities. 5, the hours of operation for businesses that are allowed to open are from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. 6, all businesses must ensure physical distancing measures of 6 feet apart are maintained and should control the number of customers inside of the premises to ensure no more than 4 customers per eye. 7, all bars and nightclubs will remain closed. 8, restaurants, there will be no dining in, takeouts only. 9, no consumption of alcohol in the public. 10, churches and other places of worship are to remain closed. 11, weddings are to be limited to 5 individuals, while funerals are to be no more than 10 individuals. 12, the following will not be permitted: private parties, recreational or sporting events, social events, meetings of fraternal societies or of clubs, group tours, loud music. 13, public transportation will be restricted to 3 individuals per row. 14, there will be no visitation to the hospital, prison, infirmary, or quarantine facility, or any home providing care to the elderly and children. 15, the airports and seaports will remain open. 16, remember that masks are mandatory by law, and the police will be authorized to give you a ticket if you are seen not wearing a mask in the public. 17, the penalty for people who fail to comply with this order has been increased to $5,000. These measures, my dear friends, are not intended to scare the population, but to ensure that we act quickly to avoid a deterioration of the situation. I make a special appeal to the people who have been contacts of the individuals who have tested positive for the virus, or individuals who have attended any of the events which I mentioned earlier, to come forward and get tested. Meanwhile, we remind all residents to remain vigilant and adhere to the COVID-19 protocols. Wash or sanitize your hands often. Cover your mouth if you are coughing or sneezing. Wear your mask. Avoid moving from home to home. Avoid family visits. If you have flu-like symptoms, call the hotline at 448-2151, 448-2153, 448-2156, 611-4325, or 1-800-219, so you could get tested. Very importantly, get vaccinated. Vaccines are available at the district health centers island-wide. Vaccination reduces the likelihood of contracting and transmitting the virus, and also reduces the likelihood of becoming seriously ill if you become infected with the virus. Once again, I wish to thank the health officials for their dedication to task. Some of our residents have not been very kind to them. Over the past week, they have received much hostility and abuse by a few contacts and their families. We as a country must condemn this behavior. These officials are working hard to protect us as a country, and the least we could do is to be cordial and cooperative. Government has done and continues to do its part. We must all, as responsible citizens, play our part and adhere to the measures and protocols. Speak to your children, your parents, relatives, friends, co-workers, and neighbors. Encourage them to comply with all protocols so that we could return to normal operation within the shortest possible time. In other words, if all of us comply over the next 7 days, we can reopen the country fully thereafter. As I close, I pray for God's guidance and protection over all our people and our country. I also pray for speedy recovery for all of those who are now infected with the virus. Let us all continue to pray for them, their families, and for Dominica. And I want to say to all of you that we will be tolerating absolutely no nonsense in this country for the next 7 days and beyond. Thank you very much.
House resumes and debate continues.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to wind the debate on the 2021-2022 budget debate. And I first want to thank my many colleagues who presented on this year's budget debate, and for those who have not spoken, for their preparation. I know they're all ready to roll, not only in terms of the content of their presentation, but also with their attire, Mr. Speaker. But I'm sure they will have the opportunity to speak to the nation on these matters. But in light of the present situation confronting our country with COVID-19, we are directing our attention to the management and containment of the spread of this virus. But, Mr. Speaker, recognizing that the opposition, or the parliamentary opposition, which that's a term they like to describe themselves, fail in their duty to be present in the parliament as they've been paid to do, and to respond, to critique the budget presented by the Minister for Finance. And I indicated to you, Mr. Speaker, and to the rest of the country, that there was one particular year when Mr. Earl Williams, the then leader of the opposition, he was present during the presentation of the budget address, and we adjourned, I believe, either the following day or 2 days later. He came to the Parliament late that morning, and the Madam Speaker delayed her entry into the House to allow Mr. Williams to make his way to the Parliament. When he came without a script, because he said then that his speeches was being emailed to him, and the email hadn't arrived. And he asked for some consideration on the Parliament, and I stood on my feet, and I moved that the House be adjourned for 30 minutes to allow Mr. Williams to receive his email, and we'll even allow the clerk of the House to facilitate the printing of his text. And the only reason why Mr. Williams asked for time then was because he realized that if he did not present at that moment the privilege which was extended to him by the Parliament, he would have forfeited that privilege. And including former Prime Minister who was still in the Parliament, Mr. Edison James. So this is clear. So the opposition, having abandoned its responsibility, we decided to let the people respond to the government's budget address. And we received numerous responses from the public, various walks of life, organizations and individuals. Mr. Speaker, if I were to give you a synopsis of a report on all of these interventions, I believe that it would be even longer than the 2 hours and 20 minutes which I took to present my budget statement. People are excited. People are hopeful because this budget is an extraordinary one in these circumstances. That there's no budget being presented in this world today where the governments are giving concessions. Governments are removing taxes. Governments is putting money in people's pocket. Because the reality is, Mr. Speaker, every single country in the world is going through a difficult challenge. And no one knows how long it's going to last. So everybody is batting, in the proverbial way, batting in his crease. Because we all woke up, we all praying for December 31 to come. 2020. Because our hope was that January 1st, 2021 would have been a new dawn. That COVID-19 would go away. People were saying, I can't wait for January 1. But January 1 came, but COVID-19 persisted. And we've had not only a second wave in the developed countries and some countries within the region, but we've had a second wave. And if we want to believe that waves are over, there's a third wave, Mr. Speaker. And currently, countries are undergoing a fourth and even a fifth wave of COVID-19. It is being described, as we were reminded by the member for Laplane, in many parts of the world, as a pandemic of the unvaccinated. In the United States, and we only use the United States, Mr. Speaker, because that's our barometer in terms of what's going on and what's not going on in the world. Because they are the largest country. They are the most developed country in the world. Largest economy, that is, Mr. Speaker. And I was watching the news yesterday and today, and there are millions, 11 million people in one state who will be evicted today. 11 million people in one state. And President Joe Biden is asking local government authorities, state governments, to go to their legislatures to pass legislation to extend the moratorium on action to evict people. And so here in Dominica, we were coasting along All of the cases we got for this year came from the borders, on the testing of the borders and the quarantine period. But we have always been concerned about this opening of illegal entry. And so, notwithstanding COVID-19, Mr. Speaker, people are totally and absolutely flabbergasted by this year's budget, as they were with last year's. And with these measures, Mr. Speaker, we are putting or keeping millions, tens of millions of dollars in people's pockets. The land transfer fees, the reduction, Mr. Speaker, I estimate about $25 million. And that is dependent on the value of the properties. And so we went to the public and said, could you serve as the opposition in Dominic and critique the government's budget this year? And I will highlight some of the comments made by members of the public. Call to budget review aired on DBS and Kyrie identified the need for more focused assistance to small practitioners within the tourism and manufacturing sector. They say, for example, there is a need for additional facilities at the Roseau Market to provide space for small manufacturers and producers to display and sell products. Many of these are byproducts of agricultural produce, such as plantain chips, various spices and sauces, soaps, lotions, and hair products. Budget measures should reach grassroots producers who may not be able to access financing at various institutions. Further, more opportunities should be created for small businesses to thrive in the city of Roseau, as rental costs are prohibitive and small enterprises are unable to compete and be successful. The Ministry of Small Business is responding to this. And this is why, Mr. Speaker, all of the apartments we've been in Roseau, we are making allocation for business, for rented spaces for businesses. And I will say to the general manager of Dexter, the intention is to relocate Dexter, because this is too much of an expensive real estate just to be loading, offloading rice and sugar and some fertilizer. And the intention there is to transform this space into a modern shopping facility which will make provisions for these kinds of people who are producing only local stuff. So a couple floors on this building will be for locally manufactured and produced items, Mr. Speaker. So they are consistent with the views of the government. The Canada Development Fund is welcome, but they are saying to us, and I agree with them, that we must pay attention to how it is going to be administered and to ensure that it is administered in a transparent manner. And so I can say to these people that the articles of incorporation, which are being finalized, are mindful of those observations. So accountability, transparency, and all the good governance principles which this government espouses and has been practicing will also be extended to the management of this fund. A Kalinago activist, a lady by the name of Maureen Valmont, also commended and this is lady doesn't support me, doesn't support the Labour Party. Also commended the $800,000 Kalinago Development Fund and hoped for swift and transparent implementation during the current fiscal year. She goes on to say, member for Salibert, she is grateful to MP Frederick for pursuing the measure in the budget and looks forward to Kalinago's accessing the funds for development purposes. Valmo called for a carnival monument to honor the indigenous peoples of Dominica, who are an integral part of Dominica's history. She hopes for the allocation of funds for such a monument in the next year's budget. Valmore also identified the need for a Canalago Cassava Bakery and a Salibia Agricultural Station, all of which are in the manifesto of the Dominica Labour Party. The business community, Mr. Speaker, welcomed the measures which encourage growth in small business, including the continuing availability of small business loans at the Aid Bank, $33 million captured in this year's budget, Mr. Speaker, for small business, and the creation of the one-stop shop to facilitate access to assistance from the small business unit. There is concern that the process to access funds is overly complex and restricted, and I believe that is something that the small business unit and the government needs to pay attention to. And sometimes it's not about the conditions, it's about the attitude of people. We have to be more facilitating, more friendly, Mr. Speaker, more welcoming. Don't tell somebody to go back and forth. Somebody comes from Penville, we pay bus fare to come down. Don't allow us to come back a second time. There's the rule, the conditions say 10 documents. If I have my 10 documents, why you make me come and come? So it's something that we have to address in Dominica, is our attitude towards each other, and whether we are facilitating and making things more difficult when it could be done much easily, Mr. Speaker. They're going to say business owners are hopeful that major projects coming on stream mean a number of spillover benefits for the economy. The construction of the international airport promises a range of immediate opportunities in agriculture, retail, and construction for truck drivers, tradesmen, contractors, fishers, farmers, and the like. This will result in increased spending power for those employed on the project and account for a greater circulation of money in the economy as income is spent on food at shops and supermarkets, on utilities, and for other basic necessities. The increase in the minimum wage, the business committee is saying, Mr. Speaker, holds implications for small business owners who may find it difficult to pay higher wages in a stressed economy. Yet, they say it is good news for workers in various low-paying jobs that can now take home a better pay packet, Mr. Speaker. The business committee goes on to say, here again, this augurs well for economic activity as more citizens are empowered to spend on basic needs and care for their families. Not Roosevelt Scary saying that, Mr. Speaker. They're going to say, no new taxes for another year running leaves more money in people's pocket to spend on their own needs. Second year running, when there's always a justification in a small economy like ours to raise taxes. There is a multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure bill before the US Congress. Multi-trillion, but there are also taxes associated with this package because they have to raise the money to finance it. And that's where the debate is between the Republicans and the Democrats. They're going to say Rosa should be viewed as a commercial hub, seen as a place of business where commerce is conducted daily. Therefore, the issue of parking needs to be addressed. Parking meters are recommended to encourage citizens to park on the outskirts of the city while they conduct their business. Those who utilize the meters will be now more inclined to complete their activities in quick time and vacate the limited parking spaces available. Parking garages run for profit as well as a bus station located away from the hustle and bustle city are also recommended. We have said that with the road enhancement, that consideration will be given to the placing of parking meters to seek to minimize the parking. And so the business community is consistent. The Dominican Association of Industry and Commerce, the representative body for businesses, has welcomed the income tax allowance for property insurance premiums. The new measure, they say, will provide incentives and encourages individuals to obtain insurance, reduce dependency on the state, and increase the disposable income within households. This measure will also allow the state to reduce contingency liabilities and redirect funds to other areas of need. The DIC is also pleased with the continuation of the policy to reduce property and transfer fees and land transfer fees. The success of the measure is clear, they say, as there has been an increase of 70% in applications for land titles over the previous year. Which means, Mr. Speaker, that all of these people who had their properties but no titles, because of this concession that we gave last year and we're extending this year, many of them now are property owners. They now have an asset to their name. And when you have an asset to your name, Mr. Speaker, it gives you that opportunity, that instrument, to be able to contract a loan and to build a home or to invest. And if you want to sell the property, Mr. Speaker, you have cash in your hand. And properties in Roseau, the price are on par to that which you find in Manhattan in the United States of America. But the important thing too is that the little man now is saving 48%. So the reduction, Mr. Speaker, is over 48%. And every dollar counts. And so the DIC is saying hooray for this, not only for last year, but extending it, Mr. Speaker. And they also say the one-stop shop at the small business unit and the concession of the aid bank will also assist small businesses to advance their enterprises. And they say that the DIC is saying it is hopeful that the measures will be implemented to good effect so that business owners will derive associated benefits. The sports associations and sportsmen and sports enthusiasts, Mr. Speaker, are saying that they welcome the announcement for the creation of the National Sports Council. They say that such an organization will provide guidance for associations as an umbrella representative body and give support to youth and students who show talent in various sporting disciplines. They're saying to us, while welcoming this announcement, the right people are needed to administer the council to ensure its effectiveness. The Sports Council should conduct its functions free of political consideration. I'm not sure what that one is there, Mr. Speaker. And they say, Mr. Speaker, on top of the National Sports Council, the announcement by the Minister of Finance to create a trust fund for sports is exciting news for sporting families. So I'm saying to the Minister of Sports and the other cabinet colleagues that we need to move very quickly with the setting up of the National Sports Council so we can put in place the trust fund that will provide financial and technical support to our athletes, especially those who have to perform overseas. Because sometimes a lot of these people going out to events, they don't have pocket change, Mr. Speaker. You know, they need some new clothes. they need a little suitcase, they need some nourishment, and that sports trust fund, Mr. Speaker, will help alleviate those challenges. And the intention there, Mr. Speaker, is to capitalize this fund with proceeds from the CBI, but the private sector more than welcome to provide this stuff. I have suggested publicly, Mr. Speaker, it's not in this budget, but I have suggested publicly that we may want to consider a sports levy. Yes. You know, a sports levy where each of us could give us 0.25% of our salary to that sports levy, and that will be managed by a trust fund. It will be used to develop and maintain sporting facilities. It will be used to help setting up clubs and paying of coaches in the villages. And I believe that it would certainly help continue to revolutionize sports now. Some callers said, Mr. Speaker, that they welcome the government's focus on people who are receiving this invalidity pension. They said that they noted that the government increased the non-contributory pension. That is to say, Mr. Speaker, those who are receiving the incentive over to $300 in 2016. Right? And just under 2,000 people are receiving this every month, Mr. Speaker. And they are hailing the increase in the invalidity pension from $202 a month to $302 a month, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell you, in speaking with the folks at the DSS, the people who are receiving this pension have already started calling and say that the SCARI say there's an increase, and it's supposed to be August 1. But the reality is you will start getting it on the last day of August, but you get those who will get by weekly, it will be effective from the weekly. And if they have to do a back pay for you, then they'll certainly do that. But the staff, they're working from the day they heard the announcement. It was supposed to be September, but I advanced it to August, and they'll be working feverishly. And I want to thank the DSS for the usual cooperation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Vice President of the Alternative People's Party, Leah Melinard. So the APP stepped forward because, Mr. Speaker, the opposition, the parliamentary opposition, at home watching cartoon. So the APP has said, Prime Minister will respond. And so the Vice President of the Alternative People's Party, Leah Melinard, has commended measures to increase staff at the Welfare Division to provide more focused attention to the plight of the country's vulnerable children. She is particularly pleased with the inclusion of a psychologist to provide psychosocial intervention for children who have suffered abuse and a need to help to overcome trauma. Melinard has encouraged fast-tracking of the Child Care and Adoption Bill and called on parliamentarians to support the passage of the bill to further provide protection for the country's children and hold perpetrators to account. In the budget address, we announced that those bills will be passed before the end or by the end of 2021. So all I will say to Ms. Melinard is that in the Labour House, there are many mansions. And we have a place prepared for you. So we welcome you. We welcome positive, serious people who are interested in national development of Dominica. So I am extending an invitation to join us, Mr. Speaker, to join us. The coordinator of the Child Protection Unit, Mrs. Gemma Azil Luis, is elated, she says, at the prospect of new staff at the unit. She goes on to say that I am confident that a staff psychologist and a counselor will significantly benefit children who have suffered sexual, physical, and other abuse. Additional staff will also assist the unit to conduct more timely interventions across the island. This is sure to increase the effectiveness of the unit and allow staff to provide prompt attention and conduct immediate investigations when matters are reported. Luis called for officers to be assigned to districts in the model of the primary healthcare districts to provide more timely interventions. Currently, all officers, she says, are deployed from Roseau. And in the restructuring of the welfare department, that is consistent with what Mrs. Luis is saying. Azil Luis also welcomed news that the family model bills will go to Parliament this year. She noted that the new legislation will create unison among the child care protection agencies on island and improve the care provided to Dominica's children. Mr. Speaker, recommendations re-renovation of washroom facilities of the government headquarters in Roseau. Mr. Alexander Stevenson is recommending the following. And some over $800,000 will be spent to improve the washroom facilities at the government headquarters. Mr. Alexander Stevenson says that government should take this opportunity to create an entrepreneurship program for about 10 to 15 young men and women of Roseau Central to get certified in plumbing, tile laying, installation of toilets, urinals, mirrors, and hand dryers with principles of basic electrical installation. He goes on to say this program can be conducted either with the Youth Development Division Skills Training Program or the Dominica State College Technical Program. That apprenticeship program could last for about 6 months with a $10 stipend per hour for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for the participants. Thus, 15 unemployed young men and women would earn a total of EC $156,000 over a 26-week period where they would get registered with the Dominica Social Security and have, for the first time, a national identification card with a 5-year validity, obtain certification and a letter of recommendation, own a bank account or credit union account with a debit card, use their skills certificate as an entry requirement to enroll in the Dominica State College formal certificate technical program to gain additional skills reinforcement, and gain any employment that the college may have as far as renovations of its own property is concerned. I believe this is a wonderful recommendation that the government should give consideration to and will give consideration to, Mr. Speaker. And so, here we have it, Mr. Speaker, a rebuttal of the Minister of Finance budget address by the people of Dominica, recognizing that those who have been paid to carry the function have abandoned their responsibility and have become truants. Truants, Mr. Speaker, a practice, a behavior that should never be tolerated, whether you're a student, whether you're working for an employer, whether you own your business, or whether you are a parliamentarian. And parliamentarians must show that they're serious about the business of the House and the business of Dominica. You're not here because of Roosevelt's skirt. You're here because of the people of Dominica. And so you have a duty and obligation to them. And they continue to fail little Dominica. But the people have spoken. The people have spoken, Mr. Speaker, and we take note of all of the comments, all the concerns, all of the observations, and we will seek to have them as part of the implementation process. This, Mr. Speaker, we believe is an exciting budget. Obviously, we have to pay attention to implementation as a government and to be a bit more diligent and to push to get these things done. Let us not let something that can be done today sleep overnight, because we know we only have today that the Lord has given to us, and we must make full use of today. So I am grateful to all of these people for the comments. Do not let the comments stop here. Keep them coming. We welcome this, because this is our country, Mr. Speaker. This is our country to build, our country to nurture, and especially in this very difficult period, Mr. Speaker, we need all hands on deck. And I am sending out an appeal to all Dominicans that this government has always been and continues to be prepared and willing to embrace you. Once, the only qualification is that you have to be serious and genuine about Dominica and its development. That's it. That's it. And so I want to thank again my colleagues for the collaboration, Mr. Speaker. I have instituted, when I became Prime Minister, a process where everybody plays a part in the budget preparation. And even in the consultations we've had, Mr. Speaker, a lot of the measures you see here are measures that have come from consultations, recommendations of various stakeholders, listening to the people, and seeing how we can tailor programs and policies and legislation to respond to the people. Because after all, we're here representing their interests, their concerns. We're here to minimize the anxieties, minimize or eliminate the fears, and to give them that genuine hope which they need. And I thank God for his blessings to be able to give us in this difficult period, Mr. Speaker, difficult period, that ability to have presented such a budget in this period. And we are grateful to him. Nobody in this country can say that the Lord has not been good to us, no. The Lord has been good to us, Mr. Speaker, because notwithstanding all of the challenges, we have maintained all our social safety net programs, Mr. Speaker. All. Last year, last financial year, we paid in excess of $36 million to NEP interns. Over $36 million. We continue to build homes for citizens. And as we said in the budget address, Mr. Speaker, this government sleeps better knowing that there are many families who sleep better at night because the government has provided them with a safe, comfortable, and decent home. And we give this solemn commitment that we shall not rest until every single family in Dominica is provided with a safe, comfortable, and resilient home. And I wish to underscore the point, Mr. Speaker, that providing housing to our citizens is not a fundamental responsibility of the government. A government really has about 4 fundamental responsibilities. Basic education. This is why, Mr. Speaker, back in the days before Labour came into office, that when you got to 16 years, you had to leave school. Because basic education ends at age 16. Basic health care, which means primary health care. Beyond primary health care, you ought to pay for your health services. But we are covering the health bill of the vast majority of the population. Basic infrastructure. This is why before Labour came into office, Mr. Speaker, this 2-lane bridge system that we have now in Dominica was not something that we were known for in Dominica. And in some cases, instead, back before Labour came to office, instead of widening roads, roads were narrowed. And this is why, Mr. Speaker, that every single road in Dominica when Labour came into office was in a bad condition. Because if village council were not diligent to do what could, develop a tarish and a little bag of cement. Roads will not be done in the villages. But whether you go to Kashaku, or you go to Capuchin, or you go to Salisbury and you go to the Carnival Territory, Mr. Speaker, this Labour Party administration has spent money improving road infrastructure. Because it is said the road to economic development is roads. Just reflect, all of us, whether Ian from Chance or from this place there, not Grange, Zika. The road to the health center back then, that was opposite the road is in Portsmouth, was clay. Clay. The Labour Street there in Granville was sand and mud. Every single road in my own constituency, Mr. Speaker, everyone was in a bad condition when I became member of Parliament. Today, everywhere in the constituency has roads. Even a place called Balizé in Amber. As some youngsters who live here were saying to me yesterday. And the other responsibility of the government is national security. That's it. So anything that we are doing, Mr. Speaker, this is why they are based on policies, by cabinet decisions. The yes, we care. This is a policy decision. The NEP is a policy decision. Our housing revolution is a policy decision. Sending students overseas to study is a policy decision. Free college tuition at Dominican State College is a policy decision. Which means, Mr. Speaker, that they can be changed or stopped at any time. Anytime. This is why these things were on the ballot paper in the last election. There was a referendum on these policies. And when people talk about housing, we were freedomites in vacant, Mr. Speaker. That's why I bring my green tie to it. And the leader of the Freedom Party, Mr. Speaker. I am the leader of two political parties in America. No only one, Mr. Speaker, you have that to know where you are one man leading two political parties. But I am the de facto leader of the Freedom Party since Charles Savage when I took over the thing. You know leader and so on. I'm the only person in politics who's known to have been associated in any serious way with the Freedom Party. But when we first came into office, we followed on Hurricane David and Hurricane Allen and so forth. And so the priorities were different at the time. But there's no house that Mr. Fix or Freedom Party fixed in my constituency. Found to build. Suffrage and Scott said, and that was a Freedom Party stronghold in Labour never won until this current new generation of Labour Party. There's no house that Mr. Fix or Freedom Party fix or build in Suffrage constituency. Maho! None! So, and we can't criticize her for that, or them for that, because it is not a fundamental responsibility of government. These things are entrenched in the party's seal of philosophy, Mr. Speaker, and our party's philosophy. For us, there is no glass ceiling. We lift everybody up, so if you're working class, we bring you up to middle class. If you're in the middle class, we take you up to upper, Mr. Speaker, and we take you up to the skies. This is why you now have, Mr. Speaker, in one of the countries with the largest middle classes in the world, Dominica per capita. Because of labor, because of our education policies, that many young people are back and are struggling because of these Labour Party's policies, Mr. Speaker. Not because government must do that. No! The government is doing that because we are labor. That's why we're doing this, Mr. Speaker. We are a people-centered party. We care for people. And what every one of us on this side wants for ourselves, our family, we want it for you and your family story. We don't grudge people, we celebrate them, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
So when I went to school and I struggled to pay with credit card and my mother having to change francs, and back in the days, you know how francs was against the US?
Yeah.
And I had to mop floors and cook and wash dishes. Not because I went through that I have to allow succeeding generations to go for this. I do not want them to go through the struggles I went through. What I want them to do, Mr. Speaker, and the parents, is to appreciate what this government is doing for them. Appreciate it because they were not there for your older siblings. They were not there for your parents, many of whom dreamed of going to university, dreamed of going to college, dreamed of going to high school. They had the intellectual capacity, they had the grades, but they did not have the financial means. Yeah. And back in the days, if you were somebody for service, or you did not know somebody in the ministry, you will not get into any university. Yeah. So when we were talking about what they will do, and talking about your access, I heard the leader wasn't talking about, he was just saying in his rebuttal that the American Airlines flight coming down is not because of the government. Because of who? And American Airlines is saying that based on their own market research, Dominica is becoming an interesting destination. And they call Mr. Speaker because of the 5-star hotels that we have built, the improvements in the infrastructure. And I can tell the public, Mr. Speaker, that we've had a team of both public and private sector people who have been knocking on the doors of all the airlines, engaging American Airlines, engaging JetBlue, engaging Caribbean Airlines in Trinidad, at them, encourage them to come. And these people are shrewd business people. They're not going to come because they want to come. They come because there are opportunities. And opportunities are created by who? The government. That's what it is, Mr. Speaker. Yes, sir. Time?
1 more minute.
10 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Honourable Prime Minister be granted an additional 10 minutes to complete his conclusion on the budget.
We have been moved and seconded, and the Prime Minister be awarded an additional 10 minutes. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. We are granted an additional 10 minutes.
Thank you. The international airport. This is extraordinary, Mr. Speaker. Most countries in the Caribbean that are building international airports have placed a tax, even before the airport has started, to help raise funds to build the airport. Others have contracted loans. My brother and friend and mentor in St. Vincent and Grenadines, Prime Minister Gonzalez, had to get the coalition of the women. Yeah. Countries that were prepared, you didn't get money from the World Bank, you get money from the CDB. Those institutions will not give you money for an airport. You will get commercial loans. But how do you pay commercial loans as a government? Through taxation, tax revenue. We have not gone to the parliament or gone to the people of Dominica and asked them to pay taxes to build the airport. The Lord has blessed us with a program called the Citizenship by Investment Program that this government has been using prudently, Mr. Speaker. I can say to the public, from the moment I became Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, we never used the CBI funds for recurrent expenditure to pay salaries and to pay goods and services. We always use the funds to either pay on debt or for the public sector investment program. Because my thinking, Mr. Speaker, is that We don't know how long this program will go with us. Anything can happen. But let us use it while we have it to set a solid foundation. So if it goes, God forbid, we would be in a position to fend for ourselves without a program. So we're investing in hotels, investing in public infrastructure, investing in educating our children, paying down our national debt, and now building an international airport. Building an international airport, Mr. Speaker. Building homes for people. People who can't go to the banks and get a loan to build a home. We're building homes for them, Mr. Speaker. That's what we're doing with the monies. And it's only under this government you can point finger and say, that is CBI, this is CBI, CBI, CBI. Yeah. All projects are in government can say. But this program has been in force since 1993. And there's nothing before this government came into office you can point out and say, that is CBI. CBI now is a household name in Dominican, Mr. Speaker. Not because people are talking about it, but because people are benefiting from it, Mr. Speaker. The people of Dominica are benefiting from it. And so we're building the international airport using the CBI fund, Mr. Speaker. And one can speak about the benefits. And while this airport is being constructed in Wesley and they will get the first bite of the cherry, the proverbial cherry, but the Rosa Valley is going to benefit dramatically from the international airport. Because 80%, we've been told that 80% of people who come to Dominica go to the Rosa Valley. The Canada territory inside the constituency. Even if Grafo, Monterey City is not known for tourism, but they're known for agriculture. Well, you have the hotel there in Rosalie Resort. Rosalie Resort will see an increase in guests. An increase in guests means more agricultural produce. An increase in guests means more jobs for the people in Grafo and Lapland. Rosa Central, everybody comes to the city. So the country is going to benefit. There's Kempinski in Portsmouth, they'll be married soon. The Hilton being built in Salisbury. Soufriere will benefit from International Airport. Because more guests come to Secret Bay and to Jungle Bay. More fish will be sold by the fishermen. And we'll be landing, side landing, jetting out, the jetting out, pulling the boats and coming and bring your fish and your catch much more improved. The massive investments we make in agriculture. This is the first government that in a practical and tangible way has linked agriculture with tourism. So this government is working with a plan. We've always been working with a plan. We have made the word resilience become an international word used by every single government and institution, Mr. Speaker. And when everybody speaks in the world, Mr. Speaker, about resilience, they refer to the Commonwealth of Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Because we have taken it up on ourselves, not only for our own personal selves as a country, but for the rest of the world, fighting the scourge of climate change. And so, we are on the road to achieving dynamic Dominica, Mr. Speaker. What vision does the opposition have for Dominica? What vision? What strategy? What plan? Zilch. Nada. They're rare. If I was somewhere with no camera, you know, nothing. All they provide to the people of Dominica is a diet of negativism, destruction, death, hatred, discord. How can you want to lead people and you're promoting these negative, evil ideals, Mr. Speaker? No love, no care, no concern. Now they're celebrating we have COVID in Dominica. Can you imagine that? In any serious leader of himself or the parliamentary position would call the Minister for Health, would call the Prime Minister, and so we stand in solidarity with you and the country. No. No. Instead of staying in Parliament, he went out and they have their Parliament where he spoke for 57 minutes. Very shortly, 2 hours and 20 minutes, the Minister of Finance spoke. When he stood up to speak, I look at the cameras, I wanted to see what happened in the House. He had no speech prepared. He had no document. All he had was the estimates. He was not prepared. And he does that all of the time. When I knew that he was going to do that before the day came. He used that as a smoke hearing, as a smoke screen. Because he doesn't have the intellectual capacity. He doesn't have the ability of reason or to reason. He doesn't have the interest of people. It's all about him. His only interest in this thing is to become the Prime Minister of Dominica. It's all about him. It's all about him. And instead, they try to mold these young senators. They are training them the wrong way. Mr. Speaker, you see me? All of these young people we have in the Parliament here, here in Australia and black, we're old people. We're old people. We're senior citizens among this group, and there was bordering on senior citizenship and senior elderly level. I want all of these young men and women to succeed, to be the best they can be. I admonish them in private and help them to build themselves so that the country can have a wider choice of leadership to succeed people like myself and the other senior people within the party and the country. So I'm not going to let any of my colleagues make a fool of themselves in the public domain, deliberately so. We have to guide them, and it is the responsibility of the leader of the party to provide that guidance to them. Yes. Because I treat all of these young people in my party, in the Parliament there, as my sons. My younger brothers and sisters, Mr. Speaker. Yeah. That's how I see them. They're family. And when you're family, Mr. Speaker, you want the best for them. You want them to shine. I want them to shine. I keep telling Mr. Speaker all the time, I don't need to be popular, you know. And old man, Mr. Speaker, they are the up and coming. They're the new generation. Yeah. But I can say to people, Dominic, that this country is fortunate, and we do thank God for it, and we do thank all of their families for allowing them to serve this country at this time. The country, Mr. Speaker, is in safe, solid, conscientious, caring hands and hearts with these people you see here on the government side. And this is why, Mr. Speaker, that whenever we are faced with a challenge in Dominica, not only Labour Party supporters are saying that, thank God, Labour in government, UWP supporters are saying, boy, I'm not voting for Labour, but voting for Lennox for Prime Minister Dominica. Because they know that in good times, you can trust Labour, and in challenging and difficult times, they can go to bed and sleep soundly, knowing that Labour is in the steering wheel, Mr. Speaker. Yes. And that by the grace of God, when they wake up in the morning, Mr. Speaker, They know that the country is sound and well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
that the estimates have passed through the Committee of the Whole House without amendments. The question is that the estimate for $993,645,290 be approved. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled 2021-2022 Appropriation Act 2021 be read a first time.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
2021-2022 Appropriation Act 2021.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move the second reading of the bill shortly entitled 2021-2022 Appropriation Act 2021.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled 2021-2022 Appropriation Act 2021 be read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
2021-2022 Appropriation Act 2021.
The bill now stands committed to a committee of the whole House to be considered clause by clause. House resumes, and I have to report that the bill shortly entitled 2021-2022 Appropriation Act 2021 passed through the committee stage with no amendments. The question is that the report of the committee on the bill be adopted. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled 2021-2022 Appropriation Act 2021 be read a third time and passed accordingly.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill entitled 2021-2022 Appropriation Act 2021 be read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. 2021-2022
Appropriation Act 2021.
The bill has been read a third time and passed accordingly.
Mr. Speaker, whereas by virtue of Section 3.1 of the Loans Act, Chapter 6405 of the 2017 revised laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica, the House of Assembly may, by resolution duly passed, authorize the minister with responsibility for finance to borrow money from approved sources or guarantee loans to statutory boards or public corporations for the purpose of financing general development purposes or other purposes. And whereas, in accordance with Section 36(1) of the Finance Administration Act, Chapter 6302 of the 2017 revised laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica, the power conferred by the Loans Act to borrow money by means of advances from a bank may be exercised by means of a fluctuating overdraft. And whereas a sum not exceeding $56,500,000 is required to meet central government's current overdraft requirements, and B, a sum not exceeding $5 million is required to meet guarantee of overdrafts to statutory boards and public corporations, be it resolved that in accordance with Section 3.1 of the Loans Act, Chapter 6405 of the 2017 revised laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica, this Honorable House authorizes the Minister responsible for finance to borrow and guarantee by means of a fluctuating overdraft a sum not exceeding in aggregate $61,500,000 from A, First Caribbean International Bank, B, National Bank of Dominica, C, Republic Bank, and D, any other approved financial institution, to meet central government's current overdraft requirements and to guarantee overdrafts to statutory and public corporations for a further period of 1 year, commencing 1st day of July 2021.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, this is a customary request of the Parliament during the budget cycle as a means of giving the government a buffer in the event that revenues of the state are not able to meet government's obligations in providing goods and services to our citizens, but also its legal obligations. We have over the years, Mr. Speaker, been very judicious with the use of the overdraft facility and very prudent as well, because we recognize that overdraft facilities are really last resort sources of funding or money. And what we have been able to do in this financial year, Mr. Speaker, is to keep the overdraft facility way below that which the Parliament approved for us in the last financial year. And this should not be taken lightly, Mr. Speaker, because we all recognize that government revenues have dropped, and so on our expenditure. Our expenditures have increased. And even now with this new development we have, Mr. Speaker, with regards to COVID, we're not going to be earning any big set of money in the next 7 days, but we're going to see a big set of expenditure in the next 7 days. And therefore, you're going to have to juggle with the meeting of obligations during this period. And just to let people understand, because sometimes there's this either deliberate or sincere misunderstanding, that government doesn't have money sitting there in an account. Government, as the day goes by, revenue comes in. And you give every agency that collects revenue on behalf of government certain targets to meet because you have some fixed obligations to meet. So if we, in any given week, we have, say, $10 million to pay, we will call the various government, the main government revenue collection agencies and say, look, you need to come up with $8.5 million this week. So because, you know, we have to meet obligations. And so where this situation is, we do not collect all that we have to collect, then we go to the overdraft facility. But and once we're able to repay this facility, we repay this facility. And we have been able to contain this, not because we do not have use for the funds, you know, but in the same token, Mr. Speaker, we have to be responsible and prudent. And it is important for all of us as individuals, whether it's at our homes, whether it's for our personal finances, or whether even for our businesses, that we too exercise and demonstrate that level of prudence and responsible use of monies. Because as I've always said, money was never meant to be spent. It was meant to be managed. So that's why you never have any course at any university on how to spend money. The courses at university always is how to manage money, and money management. And when you have small business courses, they don't give you a course on how to spend money. It is always how to manage money, because through management of funds, you're able to maintain your liabilities and build your assets. But we recognize that all of us, whether it's a government, whether it's a private entity, whether it's a family individual, emergencies do arise. And when emergencies arise, you do not have the cash in hand. And even if you may have cash in the bank, it may be tied with a loan or mortgage or student loan or whatever it is, a motor car, whatever it is. And therefore, you have to go to another source and get it. Private businesses and many citizens have access to overdraft facility. But there are many citizens who do not have it, and that's why they go to the fast money businesses and they contract loans. Now, these fast money services, they have an important role to play in the society. They do provide a service that many of us need from time to time, because the traditional financial institutions are not as robust and nimble to develop financing instruments so that people can access if there is an urgent need. But it is very important for us as citizens and families to be very careful in contracting those loans. And if your salary is $1,000 and you have debt repayment for $1,200, it doesn't take a bright person, Mr. Speaker, to let you know that you have a difficulty. And therefore, it's always important for us to live within our means. And if, perchance, because of an emergency, we have, because cost of medical services are high, you know, and something happens, you get into an accident, you have to fix the person's car, your child has an accident, a broken leg, you know, something happens, you know, somebody suffers cancer, you have to go to Guyana or to Australia for treatment. We understand these things, the practical things that we understand. So when you find yourself in a situation, it's important for you now to put all your expenditure on the table. And then you start with what you call discretionary spending. You cut discretionary spending. So you're not going to die if you don't have a few beers this weekend. You're not going to die if you don't have access to your phone, to data on your phone. Though I believe many people in this country will go through a state of depression if they don't have access to their phones. But we have to manage the use of the phones. So if we don't have the means to call, the telephone companies give us the opportunity to send a message to somebody, call number so and so, and let somebody call you for the week while you try to manage your obligations and reduce on your expenditure. Because we are very concerned in the government with personal debt. Personal debt in our islands in the Caribbean is very high. and it is way beyond what it should be in terms of prudential limits. So the government is doing so, and what we have also done, Mr. Speaker, to cushion the impact, especially in a natural disaster, on external shock, or in the case of pandemic, is that we're saving for a rainy day. We're saving for a rainy day. It is $500,000. It's not plenty money, but every dollar counts. We started in October. By the 15th of July this year, we're at 5 million. And then once the economy gets back to where it was prior to COVID-19, we intend to increase the capitalization of that fund, so that in the event of an external shock or natural disaster or pandemic, we have a source that we can draw them from and not place any debt burden on ourselves and pass on to the citizens of Dominica. So and even when this pandemic came, Mr. Speaker, the first thing I did as Minister of Finance was to sit down with the Financial Secretary and to put my pen through expenditure and cut down discretionary spending. And so we saw discretionary spending or expenditure reduced by 18% or so. But that did not prevent us from meeting our obligations to public officers, to the social safety net people, to the NEP, to brush cutting on the roads, to road maintenance, to laptops for children and supply to schools, to medicine, and all of the resources that the Ministry of Health has asked of us to fight COVID-19. We have been able to do so. And this is what the government has been doing all of these years, not only now, but all of these years. This is why we've always lamented, always said to the public, that the prudent and responsible management of the finances of the country is paramount, especially for any economy, but more so for a small, open, vulnerable economy that is prone to natural disasters and prone to external shocks. And the prudent use of the funds also very important. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the country, assure the Parliament, that we will continue on that track with our prudent and responsible management of the finances of the country, because the more we are prudent is the more we're able to help people. And so, notwithstanding COVID-19, we have been able to provide for our people. We continue to build homes, to reconstruct streets and roads in the communities, and provide millions to farmers and people in the agricultural business and small business support, Mr. Speaker. In the COVID period, the small business loans, plus income support. We supported bus drivers. We supported businesses with the staff. So we did a number of things because we have been able to contain discretionary spending and use that fiscal space to provide for people. And so this is what we're going to continue to do. And I want to commend the Minister of the Environment and the Ministry of the Environment for leading the initiative of changing all of the bulbs to energy-saving bulbs in the government buildings. And all of these things, as small as they appear to be, they add up. Because I always tell people, when you're doing the money, 1 + 1 is not 2. 1 + 1 is 11. And so every dollar you save is a dollar that you keep in your pocket and you can use for your development, or you can use to build your asset and the financial base. So we need to do so, and this is why, with regards to the vulnerability risk fund that we have, we also will be mandating all statutory entities owned by the state and all companies owned by the state to have their resilience fund established, and that fund will have the administrative control of the financial secretary. So when that company or the statutory board wants to draw down from it, they must write to us saying why they want to use it and give evidence to support their claim that they have suffered a shock and they need to draw on this one. Because when these companies are not able to meet the obligations, guess who pays for it? The Treasury. And therefore, we need to ensure that all of the state entities follow suit with the policies and the programs of central government. And when everyone does that, we complement each other and we place the country in a better situation. And one beauty, if the small business owners, the private sector, and individual families were to do the same. Because I'm not a businessman, you know, I am just a village politician, I tell people. I apply common sense to many things, to all things. And if you have a small business, and then you have 3 vehicles purchased by that small business, but these vehicles are not at the service of that small business, and then you buy a motorbike to go online on that small business money, and then you have the business checkbook and ATM, and you go in the bar and you buy drinks, and you don't pay back the business. There's nothing wrong with the business giving you a loan, but you have to pay back. And a lot of people don't pay themselves a salary when they own a business. I urge people, pay yourself a wage and have a separate account for your business. Mr. Speaker, as you know, I do some farming. The Lord has blessed me with some, not only green thumbs, but green hands. So whatever I plant, they grow and they yield a bountiful of fruits and produce. So I do sell, but I have a separate account for the farm. I don't pay myself in cash, but I pay myself through produce. Whatever labor I put on the farm, I take the produce from it. You know, but we have to do this likewise. So I can tell you in any given year how much I spend on the farm and how much I made from the farm. And I think business people need to do likewise so that you do not mix up your private self with your business, even if you're the only owner of the business. And this is why and you have a shop in the village, many people have shops in the village, but they have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and drinks on the shop. And sometimes when this also have 1 hour coming, they are treating a condo. And some people get in bread to sell, they buy the whole basket of bread in the shop and so on. And in the shop, they say the shop Kule. You see, in order to shop Kule, we, the owner, we use all the money. And so we cannot replenish stock. We cannot buy more stock. So if you buy breakfast, if you're taking breakfast from the shop, pay the shop. The shop will give you credit, but when the shop pays you, you pay the shop back. And I can give you the assurance that your business will be prosperous and will be successful if you manage money and if you separate yourself from the business. And this is what the government is doing with the overdraft. This is, we use it judiciously, and we don't use it for anything, Mr. Speaker, and everything. We use it for particular critical interventions and commitments the government has to make. And I can say to the Parliament that the $56.5 million which the Parliament approved last financial year for the government, our current overdraft facility is significantly lower than the $56.5 million. And this is deliberate on the part of us and the Ministry of Finance, because we wanted to ensure that we continue to operate within the confines of the law and within the confines of the approval given us to Parliament. And so, Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I wish to commend this motion to the House. Thank you.
The motion is before the House for debate.
Mr. Speaker, we are approaching 6 o'clock and curfew starts at 6 o'clock, so I suspect the ministers have to drive far to home, and yourself, Mr. Speaker, and the staff. So there's no debate, so I wish to commend the motion to the House.
Be it resolved. This concludes the debate. I will now put the question. Be it resolved that in accordance with Section 1 of the Loans Act, Chapter 6405 of 2017, revised laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica, this Honorable House authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow and guarantee by means of fluctuating overdraft a sum not exceeding in the aggregate 61,500,000 Eastern Caribbean dollars from A, First Caribbean International Bank, B, National Bank of Dominica, C, Republic Bank, D, any other approved financial institution to meet central government's current overdraft requirements and to guarantee overdrafts to statutory and public corporations for a further period of 1 year, commencing the first day of July 2021. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
So, a couple of minutes, the clerk is getting the names of the committees for the establishment committees. But while we wait, if you allow me, Mr. Speaker, I wish to indicate to the country that Mr. Lennox Lawrence, an attorney at law, will be appointed to act Attorney General effective today for a period of 1 month. During the absence from the state of the incumbent Attorney General. So he more than likely will get sworn in either today or tomorrow by His Excellency the President. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, thanks for your indulgence. As you're well aware, Mr. Speaker, the opposition is not present, and therefore I cannot consult with the opposition. So I am only at liberty to recommend to the House the members of the committees appointed on the government side, Mr. Speaker. Right? So for the Public Accounts Committee, we have Honorable Minister Poppins-Skerrit, and we have Senator the Honorable Nichols Esprit. And for the Privileges Committee, we have Honorable Joseph Isaac, the Speaker, that is required by law, as Chairman. We have Honorable Octavia Alfred, Honorable Dr. Addis King on the government side. The Standing Orders Committee, Honorable Joseph Isaac, Speaker, as required by law, is also the Chairman. Honorable Cozier Frederick, Honorable Fidel Grant from the government side. The Parliamentary Proceedings Broadcasting Committee, We have Honorable Joseph Isaac, Speaker. We have Honorable Edward Regis and Honorable, and it's not Sherika, it's Shekira, okay? We have Honorable Shekira Lockhart Hippolyte on the government side. And on the Creed Parliamentary Oversight Committee, we have Honorable Levi A. Peter as the chairman in his capacity as Lieutenant General, Senator the Honorable Oscar George, and Senator the Honorable Cassany Lavin. Thank you. Yeah. Sure.
It has been moved.
That's all of them. That's all of them.
It has been moved that the Honorable, in regards to the Public Accounts Committee, that members nominated by the Honorable Prime Minister, that would be Honorable Melissa Popon-Skerrit, Honorable Senator Nicholas Esprit as members. Somebody will have to second it.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
So it has been moved and seconded that Honorable Melissa Popon-Skerrit and Honorable Senator Honorable Nicholas Esprit be members of the Public Accounts Committee. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. It has been moved by the Honorable Prime Minister that in regards to the Privileges Committee, that Honorable Joseph Isaac, Speaker, be the chairperson, and Honorable Octavia Alfred be a member, and Honorable Dr. Addis King be a member.
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded, and Honorable Joseph Isaac be the chairperson, Honorable Octavia Alfred be a member, and Honorable Dr. Addis King be a member of the Privileges Committee. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. In regards to the Standing Orders Committee, it has been moved by the Honorable Prime Minister that Honorable Joseph Isaac, Speaker, be the chairman, Honorable Kozia Frederick be a member, Honorable Fidel Grant be a member. That is of the Standing Orders Committee.
Seconded.
So it has been moved and seconded that Honorable Joseph Isaac, Speaker, be the chairman, Honorable Kozia Frederick be a member, and Honorable Fidel Grant be a member of the Standing Orders Committee. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. In regards to the Parliamentary Proceedings Broadcasting Committee, it has been moved by the Honorable Prime Minister that Honorable Joseph Isaac, Speaker, be the chairperson, Honorable Edward Regis be a member, Honorable Shekira Lockhart Hippolyte be a member.
Mr. Speaker.
So it has been moved and seconded that in regards to the Parliamentary Proceedings Broadcast Committee, that Honorable Joseph Isaac be the chairman, Honorable Edward Regis, member, Honorable Shekira Lockhart Hippolyte be member. It was moved and seconded. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. In regards to the Creed Parliamentary Oversight Committee, it has been moved that in regards to the Creed Parliamentary Oversight Committee, that Honorable Levi Peters be the chairperson, Senator Honorable Oscar George, a member, Senator Honorable Cassany Lavin, member.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
So in regards to the Creed Parliamentary Oversight Committee, it has been moved and seconded that Honorable Levi Peters be the chairperson, Senator Honorable Oscar George be a member, Senator Honorable Kasani Laville be a member. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to urge our citizens to be safe, to be cautious, and to respect the protocols and the measures which we are putting in place to protect them, their families, and the entire country. There's no need to panic. There's need for us to be responsible and for us to adhere to all of the protocols and the measures. We're doing this, as we've always said, Mr. Speaker, we shall not shy away from taking decisions to protect lives and to protect our citizens. And so let us use this period to reflect and to allow the health officials to do what they need to do. Let me urge all of us to be cooperative. We are doing so for your well-being and for the well-being of your family and for the well-being of the country. And the more cooperative we are, the better for all of us at the end. And I believe that if we can adhere to the rules and to the orders and to the protocols over the next 7 days as have been mandated, I am confident that we can contain the situation. We have been confronted with such in the past, not to the extent as we are now because of the fact that we have people come all over the country, but we can do so. And I really want to commend the 217 people who showed up yesterday to get tested. And many of them were diligent enough, well, they were all diligent enough to wait for a very long period of time to get tested. And I want to also commend the team at the Roseau Health Center for their extraordinary service. The truth is, Mr. Speaker, they should have ended their shift at 1 p.m. yesterday, but they stayed well into the night to ensure that everyone who showed up yesterday and who stayed was able to get tested. And this is extraordinary. We really have fantastic people throughout the public service. And sometimes we focus on the little negatives here and there, but they're really diligent and genuine Dominicans who are doing what they must and what they have to do, and going beyond the call of duty to do what they have to do. And I want to applaud them. I know that they have serious challenges as myself with the facilities at the Roseau Health Center, but we will be moving very quickly with the construction of a new Roseau Health Center, likewise in St. Joseph and likewise in Savonpai, so that they can have adequate facilities, and will ensure that they will not only have facilities for the public, but also for their private comfort when they are between patients. So we are mindful of the challenges. So we're not daunted by the task. This government has been confronted with many challenges in the past, and by the grace of God and the cooperation and collaboration of the general public, we have overcome those challenges, and we shall overcome those challenges. My hope and prayer is that we will not need to extend the curfew beyond the 7 days, but this can only be guaranteed if we all in this country do what we have to do. And as I said, we're not going to be tolerating any foolishness over the next 7 days. A word to the wise is sufficient. We're not going to be tolerating any nonsense in this state. This is about people's lives
people's safety, people's well-being, and bread and butter on people's tables. And we will not be messing around with this. And so nobody cannot say Scary didn't tell me, because when you stick chicken in Parliament, everybody hears you, Mr. Speaker. So we're at better place to speak to the nation and from the Parliament. So let's go forth and do what we have to do, and we will overcome this challenge, Mr. Speaker. So with this, I wish to move that the House be adjourned, sign the die.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the House be adjourned, sign the die. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. House is adjourned, sign the die.